Hello, everyone. Very good morning. Welcome to the sunshine here in Jerez, in Spain. It's a beautiful morning, and it can only be made more beautiful by us getting round 3 of Ferrari Challenge for 2024 underway here. As the UFA, as you can see, has landed at the top of the track here at the circuit of Jerez. What a beautiful location for a racing circuit, and it's one that we know is going to deliver some scintillating race action to come. But before all the racing gets underway, of course, the drivers need to qualify. And it is going to be our 488 class of cars that will be out for their first qualifying session. Some 6 of the drivers that will take to this 4.428 kilometer track, which contains 13 or 14 turns, depending upon how you count them. 8 right, 6 left, and it is quite a technical circuit to master here. I remember being here back in 2016, I think it was, when last we paid a visit here with the Ferrari Challenge. As you can see, very nearly to the halfway stage of our 2024 season. From here, we head to Portimao, then La Castellet, then the Nürburgring in September. You know what that means, snow. And Imola, of course, for the finale mondiale in October. Forgive my wit. Alongside me, my partner in crime, Nico Spalek. We have to say a big thank you and welcome also to Marco, our top technician, producer, and manager of all things that work so perfectly. And big thank you from us, because he always looks after us, and he's joining us in the studio. Quite why he needs to be punished in such a way, I do not know, but there you can see the air temperature is 23 degrees, sorry, 21 degrees, the track temperature is 23 degrees. That particular tower that ordinarily my colleague Nico Spalek would insist we get to the top of, I was there yesterday, ironically, without Nico. You sent me there on my own.
Yeah, I'm sorry. And good morning, everybody. Thank you, Marco. And I would like to use this opportunity to say thank you to everybody in the OB van, everybody around the cameras, around the track. They will not get wet today, but they will have it, I mean, in the sunshine with no shade. And I can't even imagine how punishing the temperatures will get today. And if you look at these people in this ornament and protective wear, thinking that you have to wear that when it's going to be 35, 36 degrees later on, that I don't want to imagine. So we enjoy our position here in the commentary booth, and we enjoy the look of Ivan David Murray, who is getting ready for his qualifying session. We have the 488 challenge, take 2 qualifying first here in Jerez.
To the right-hand side of your picture, Nico, there is Mrs. Pino. The driver is Pino Frascaro, and I call her Mrs. Pino because they are lovely, lovely, lovely people. And unfortunately, my burgeoning waistline can be directly attributed to the generosity of Mrs. Pino, who upon arrival on the track, she's almost standing by with bars of chocolate for me, Nico. Yeah. And that is her husband, Pino Frascaro. He is one of the head honchos when it comes to this 488 challenge, and will be out there on track shortly. So we are blessed with some fantastic racing cars, some fantastic racing drivers, and a paddock which is truly so welcoming, Nico.
Yeah, but don't put all that blame on her.
Please. No, okay.
But no. Yeah, we're about 25 seconds away from getting this quali session underway, and we have 20 minutes of qualifying for the 488 challenge, and there is Tommy Lindroth, big character.
It was here in 2016.
Oh, no.
Where Tommy Lindroth sat on the grid in his car, in his normal sort of fairly aggressive-looking pose. I would say it's because of absolute focus before the start of the race, and the RF camera went into Tommy Lindroth, where he just did a rude gesture to the camera, which caused me to start laughing, and I couldn't stop laughing. And in those days, Nico, we were on a budget, so we didn't have you alongside me to cover for me when I lost all sense of sensibility.
I'm not sure I would have been able to, because that even seeing it afterwards on the screen, that was quite a moment. And
bless Tommy.
Bless Tommy, and great to have Tommy here with us. And we can see early on the cars already filing out of pit lane. 20 minutes, as we say. We have the clock at the top left of your screen, you will see the ranking form up beneath it. By virtue of the fact that nobody has been able to put in any time, meaningful or non-meaningful, it's quite empty on that side, but that will change later on as we have our 488 challenge cars take to this qualifying session at moderate pace, I dare say. Still quicker than the track walk I did this morning, but this is going to change.
But at least you did a track walk this morning. I most certainly did not, as I was sending the Zeds through the ceiling of my really rather pleasant hotel room at some ungodly hour this morning when you were out deciding that you wanted to get a close view of the 4.4 kilometers here. So Niels Branson is one of the drivers out there. In fact, with the exception of our championship leader Fabrizio Fontana and also Alexei Komarov, and Fabrizio Fontana, of course, leading in the 488 Challenge Championship at the moment. Those two drivers are still in the pit lane, but they have some 18 and a quarter minutes within which to get themselves out there on the track and start their qualifying session, which will set the grid for these 488 Challenge cars. So they run, of course, in the race, Nico, with the Copa Shell drivers who are driving the 296 car. So it's a really, really interesting and eclectic mix when it comes to the racing, but they qualify separately, which is why you will only see some 6 cars out on the track for this 20-minute qualifying session. Fear not, the paddock is packed with racing machinery, but we are watching the 488 cars out there, and it's normal practice, Nico, isn't it, with the Ferrari Challenge? We are in an evolution year, if you like, where, of course, we've introduced a brand new car, the phenomenal 296, but credit to all of those that worked so hard in producing the cars back in Maranello. The sheer numbers with which they have to make these cars means that the 488 was always going to get a further season of racing for those drivers that elect to use those 488 cars. And that's the same not only here but also in North America, also where the 296 has been introduced this year. And as we can see, the first driver to really show for us, and we run a clock on, is Ivan David Mari for Garage Zenith at Best Lab, who incidentally, their garage is almost right next door to our broadcast studio here. So we will see how they do. As you can see, first sector of 43.850. You were going through the perambulations of this track following your second track walk of this weekend, Nico, and you were saying that it is quite a technical circuit. And many of the drivers have also replicated your views in that they don't get the opportunity to really relax much on this track. Now, of course, racing drivers never relax, and please don't think I'm talking silly nonsense, but there are some tracks that have elongated straights that do at the minimum give drivers the opportunity just to have a breath or so. This track, you're pretty much on it all of the time.
Yeah, pretty much, and it is quite an undulating circuit, and don't think the pictures really give credit to it. As we follow Ivan David Mari to the final sector, he will now take a right, and then he is already approaching the final turn of the circuit. Pit entries on the left-hand side as he is approaching, you can see it there, and now he heads towards the UFO, and here you can see the crew working and giving him indications with the pit board, and there is the UFO, and this first climb is climbing towards the first peak of the track, and it is a little bit like Red Bull Ring if you're more familiar with that circuit, in that you climb up into the first turn.
Yes.
But where Red Bull Ring offers a lot of runoff area on the outside, and on a start situation, you can be forgiven with taking a little bit of liberties with the track limits. It's not here in Jerez. There is a long, deep, wide gravel bed, and if you run wide there and try and take a slingshot, that will stop your momentum fairly quickly, and you will be out of the race very, very soon. So that is something for this Jerez circuit. You can see it's an old style track. Not a lot of tarmac runoff area. There's a lot of gravel beds very, very close to the racing line on the outside. So that's something that the drivers will have to be mindful in the race, but also in qualifying, because, one mistake here, just take a little bit too much risk, you can end up in the gravel, and you can just see how much gravel there is. And that can easily bring out a red flag in qualifying, and you have to allow for that in your strategy, because you don't want to be caught out by going out too late and then having an interruption to the session curtail all your efforts. So yes, it's a technical circuit with lots of kinks and turns, lots of winding corners which you can take at considerable speed, but also lots of tight corners where you have to really measure your pace.
Thank you for that really rather encyclopedic analysis, and very enjoyable it was too. Of course, that turn one at the, as we refer to it in the Ferrari world, of the Spielberg circuit in Austria, of course, has been named the Niki Lauda turn, if memory serves me, and it's a very scenic circuit as well as being very testing for the drivers. And you're right, the turn one sequence here is reminiscent of that, and as you quite rightly say, the difference here is the opportunity to have your bottom bitten by the gravel trap rather than the acres of tarmac runoff area. Well, that could certainly call for you as we watch Nils Branson right now. The order is currently Ivan David Mari ahead of Tommy Lindroth of Pino Frescaro, as Nils Branson, though, he will cross the timing line now, and he advances one place and goes from P4 to P3 with just around 12 3/4 minutes remaining in our 488 qualifying session, our first qualifying session of today. We go on to the Rosso Corsa pit wall where all the data is being analysed, and you can see also just see Gianmarco Marzioletti in the background of that picture, one of our 296 racers, as we watch the 211 car of Alexei Komarov then driving for the Scuderia Prague racing team, and this is his outlap. As he crosses the timing line, the clock will start on his lap right now. This is the very turn Nico was talking about, which is turn number one. Back on the gas again, and it measured expectation into this really rather tight sequence. And whilst it doesn't look quite so tight at the moment, when you consider that it's packed with cars in a race situation, all of a sudden it becomes very different, as every driver jostles for space and tries to get the best. Tries to get the best. Part of our air conditioning unit has just decided to break and distribute parts across the floor.
The ominous sign early morning
Yes.
as we watch Alexei Komarov going and very much completing the first sector. It's a very long first sector, almost 1.9 kilometers of the 4.4. The second one, which Komarov is currently on, is the shortest, and it includes that hairpin, almost hairpin, which he just took. And then the final sector is that stadium section, which Alexei Komarov is going to approach very soon. He's just finishing sector 2 after this turn, and the time's really not that indicative yet. And now there is that final sector with that chicane which dots this final sector before it goes out then onto the final few turns and pit entry or another lap. Ivan Mari currently P1 and still on a trajectory to improve, currently a 150.426.
Yes, we expect those times to be bettered as the session continues for the final 10 minutes and 20 seconds that are remaining here. It is the Ferrari Challenge. Welcome if you are just joining us. We are live from Jerez in Spain for round 3 of our Ferrari Challenge for 2024. And we have our 488 Challenge drivers out there on track qualifying right now. Tommy Lindroth, who is currently P2 in this qualifying session, and P2, if memory serves, in the Drivers' Championship as well. Tommy having a very good time of it this year, and richly deserved as well. He's been an ever-present in the Ferrari Challenge for a number of years, and we pick him up right now driving the number 227 car. I was talking to Tommy just yesterday in the paddock, and great guy he is, Tommy Lindroth, and being coached by Ferrari Challenge star and really quick young lady, Fabienne Volvend. Having a chat with Fabienne yesterday. We were actually reminiscing about the times that we've enjoyed at the Nürburgring, where Fabienne was, of course, partaking of the famed endurance race. We'll be talking about famed endurance races during the course of today, but the Nürburgring 24, well, actually use a bit of Tipex there, the Nürburgring 7 hour, I think it was, which unfortunately, due to the weather conditions that are very, very unpredictable in the Eifel, and the Eifel region of Germany, where we will be visiting with the Ferrari Challenge come September, which means probably we will have snow.
Yeah, probably. The NLS endurance race at the Nürburgring currently being held, qualifying because of fog. But, well, you know, we enjoy Spain, we enjoy the sunshine, and Ivan Mari enjoys being P1. We've got only 8.5 minutes remaining, so we're getting to the end already almost of this qualifying session. Just to give you some reference, the quickest times in the 488 category set over the last few days were 1:46.76. So we're still about 3.8 seconds away from that. Now, it was later in the day that those times were set, so we're not expecting necessarily that those will be matched, but there is still a lot of potential maybe in there. And well, we said that Fabrizio Fontana is the dominator of the championship thus far, and by virtue of the colors of the sectors, you would think that it may be the same.
Yes. All of a sudden, as he crosses the timing line, he goes from P6 to P1, having taken what is, Nico, by any measure, a huge lump out of anybody else's time. 1.894 margin, which sends him to the top of the timing chart with a 1:48.521. Ivan Maieri, David is P2. Then it's Tommy Lindroth, Pino Frascaro, Nils Sebranson, and Alexei Komarov. I think the point that you were making with regards to the times that were set later in the day on previous days here, just reinforcing the fact that the track temperature does have an impact and an effect on the times that the drivers are able to deliver. And we have just under 7 minutes of this qualifying session remaining. Super slow-mo shots of the Formula Racing driver of car 269, Fabrizio Fontana, then at his best. That's the long stretch into what is this hairpin, Nico.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the end of Sector 1, the beginning of Sector 2. And this is a little bit later in the lap. Fabrizio Fontana is now coming, making that right-hander, and then he is heading towards the chicane. It's a right-hander, left-hander, and immediately a right-hander again. And
that's going to be tight through there in the race.
That's going to be very tight, and it's quite fortunate at the end of the lap rather than the very beginning after the start.
That point
would be drama programmed, and Fabrizio is taking the final turn and heading out towards the start-finish straight with exactly 6 minutes remaining. Good second sector, and we expect a further improvement as he crosses under the UFO. Great shot there. And indeed, it's another 9/100ths shaved off the time. It's a 1:48.431. Do we have further improvement? Not quite seeing any, but it's still 5.5 minutes remaining, so it's not done and dusted. And one driver who's still going to go out for another shot is
Pino Frascaro, driver of the 240 car. That brings back memories. 240, a former radio station that I worked at in the dim and distant past when we only had electricity for 1 day a week. Had an AM frequency that was 240 meters. So Pino Frascaro choosing to pay homage to a former employer of mine. Thank you, Pino. I've just realized that. There is the 227 car of Tommy Lindroth then. Go Motorsport and Baron Racing engineering that car of Tommy Lindroth. And I think it's fair to say, Nico, we're seeing the best of Tommy this year. We saw huge improvements from him last year when, you know, everything came together. And of course, he's a very, very likable, big character. And Tommy can be a very, very great racing driver, and he's indeed a very good racing driver, and we're seeing him back at his best, I think, at the moment. Pretty much a podium in every race that he's entered this year, and richly deserved. However, There's none so good as this man at the moment, Fabrizio Fontana, who incidentally being coached by a former Ferrari Challenge star, Stefano Guy, who remains a star in all sorts of racing. Always been very loyal to this wonderful prancing horse brand, and Stefano is certainly able to offer all his wisdom to Fabrizio Fontana, who comes here into circuit racing, Nico, from a rallying background, which is a very, very different discipline. There is Fabienne Volvend. You can see her with the shorts on and the legs on show, just looking after Tommy. And I really I feel that the relationship that Tommy and Fabienne have, Fabienne has definitely been able to extract the best out of Tommy, because we're seeing him perform as good as we ever have done.
Yeah, I think Fabienne, I mean, great racer herself.
Indeed.
But she's not going to take any nonsense from Tommy. And
what do you insinuate?
I'm insinuating that Tommy is a person who has his priorities straight in life.
Yes.
And
that's true.
That his racecraft is so his potential in racecraft is so great, and when he has someone who will get help him get the most out of that, you can immediately see it on the track. And Fabienne has absolutely been that person who has managed to get Tommy to focus and be there in the right moment, and he has delivered.
Be there in the right moment is appropriate. I don't know if you were there, but yesterday, you know, one of my additional duties, of which there are many, for Ferrari was I was conducting an interview with the team principal of Baron Motorsport, that is Philip Baron. And Tommy came and plonked himself down with a director's chair, Spielberg-like, and sat there to critique how the interview was going. And it was a very welcome addition, Nico, but yeah, indicative of just how much Tommy is really invested and involved in this championship, and a fantastic character.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's got the right attitude, and he's got he takes everything with a smile, or not smile, but he's really wears his heart on his sleeve, and uses every opportunity to then make the most of the situation, like yesterday.
Yes.
And then it's Fabienne who reels him in just a little bit when it's time for the race, and I think that really is showing on the timing screen, and the results are there. With 90 seconds remaining in this qualifying session, we can see Alexei Komarov improving, we can see Peter Frascara improving on our timing screen. Tommy Lindroth, as we saw, has just come out and just completed his outlap, so we expect one more shot at this with lap times of 1 minute 48 seconds. It really means there's only one more opportunity for him to improve, and then we will have a result for this first quali mini session of today, because after that we'll go almost straight to the Copper Shell class.
And this, like all of our qualifying sessions, Nico, may I remind you, not that you need reminding, but not only does the success in this qualifying guarantee you an exemplary position in terms of where you start the race, i.e. the grid position that you will earn from your qualifying today, but it also earns you a point, Nico. And at the end of the season, every single one of those points totted up can mean a huge difference. So there is a real incentive for our drivers in terms of qualifying, not only giving themselves the best starting position on the grid, but also the best opportunity to take advantage of earning an additional point through their endeavors and efforts, if you will, during qualifying here at the Jerez circuit. Although the qualifying machinations work at whatever circuit that we are at. And from here, it's a hop, skip and a jump, actually, to our next round of a mere 353 kilometers as we cross the border from Spain into Portugal and Portimao.
Almost walkable.
It's just... When last we were here in Spain, dear viewer, my colleague alongside me here, Nico, we were just up the road a bit, where of course Formula One is this weekend in Circuit de Catalunya in Barcelona, as the checkered flag is out in this qualifying session. where my colleague alongside me, who chauffeurs me everywhere, and I owe him a great debt of gratitude for always being there, he very nearly took out one of the power supplies in the paddock because he was reversing at such a great rate of knots and then stopped a car within, I kid you not, within a millimetre of taking out a power supply, which for some reason, curiously, had hidden itself from him. That was really close, and it reminds me, the reason for telling the story is not to reinforce your weakness in terms of your reversing manoeuvre, is when last we were in Portimao, Nico, I did exactly the same with a rental car where I jacked it up on a barrier in Lagos. And so you and I have got some history and heritage when it comes to damaging rental cars.
Unfortunately, neither of those were a Ferrari. So
no.
Those wonderful machinery are safe from our driving. Oh, talking about safe. Oh, please step aside. Pit lane activity.
Yes, stand aside.
So this qualifying session is done, and we're only 3 minutes away from getting the Copper Shell underway. But for the moment, it's still 4:88 time, Dave.
We had to take the. So I returned the rental car that I damaged back to my hotel, where I managed to find a tennis racket. And I was trying to beat out the dent I'd made with the tennis racket. I mean, come on. I just want you to realize how glamorous our life is. You don't realize.
Yeah, welcome to the MacGyver racing team.
The order. Come on, get it together, Dave. Fabrizio Fontana, the very car that you can see center screen right now. Unsurprisingly, if I'm honest with you, is best in qualifying with a time of 1:48.431. That's very nearly a clear 2 seconds as Stefano Guy with the headphones on there congratulates his driver. Very nearly 2 seconds better than Ivan David Mari and Tommy Lindroth, who are P2 and P3 in qualifying. And here is a confirmation of how it sat then with Fabrizio Fontana. He will take pole position and a further point to cement his championship lead ahead of Ivan David Mari, Tommy Lindroth, Pino Frascaro, Alexei Komarov and Niels Sabranson, the top 6 drivers in our 488 challenge. They, of course, will be racing with our Copper Shell cars, which will, as Nico has predicted, be out next for their qualifying session. Each of the categories, if you will, gets 20 minutes, which feels like a long time. It really isn't, actually. And it goes by in a beat. And yes, we will see, because we're going to have some 15 cars out there with our Copper Shell drivers, including Motohiko Isasaki and Ray Acosta and Corinna Gosner. Incidentally, who I saw Corinna at our hotel this morning. Welcome back to racing, Corinna, because we've not seen her this season thus far, so really nice that she is back. John Dillon, Alexander Nussbaumer, Pierluigi Alessandri. I mean, it's littered with very, very good drivers. So this next 20-minute qualifying session is going to be very intense.
Absolutely, especially with Copper Shell, which arguably is the most competitive in terms of having, I want to say, immediately 7 or 8 drivers who I would immediately pick as pole potential. I mean, the likes of Motohiko Isozaki, Andreas Rizzi, Tibor Valent, Alexander Nussbaumer, John Dillon, Thomas Gostner, Christoph Hörni, Henry Hassid, Franz Geltman, Manuel Agosto. I mean, all of those could arguably end up in pole position in 22 minutes or so. And we've got immediately a number of cars, and led by at least 2 Gostners. I can tell it's probably 3 of them. Manuela very certainly at the very front of the queue, and it's only 8 seconds away. There is the Christoph Hörni car of Scuderia Zenit. Was the 107 car of Rea Costa. There is Motohiko Isozaki, our Copper Shell M champion from 2023, elevated to Copper Shell, and he is really mixing it up with the Copper Shell competitors in great style, and we've had some very, very entertaining races already this year. And I mean, the chase between Henry Hassid and Manuel Agostner in Balaton was an epic one.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
And Andreas Rizzi was the one who eventually stood at the very top of the podium.
Yes.
He had rather a boring race in comparison, wasn't involved in the battles as much, and that came good for him eventually. But boy, have we seen amazing races, and really, really close and competitive. And we've had 4 races, we've had 4 different winners in the Copper Shell and in Copper Shell already.
Yes.
So it just shows you and underscores how balanced and how competitive this championship is.
Completely agree with you. So now the cars we're seeing out there on track are the Ferrari Challenge 296 cars, Manuel Agostino, Motohiko Isasaki, Ray Acosta, the 3 cars you can see there who kind of headed the queue to get out there for qualifying and bank a lap fairly early on. And you can see there is Motohiko Isasaki in the all-green car. This is Ray Acosta for Ferrari of Miami. Miami resident Nico, who races in both North America and also Europe as well, and Ray's a very, very strong driver indeed, and loves coming here to experience the European circuits as opposed to some of the home circuits back in North America, which in character are often very different to the circuits that we have here in Europe, and that for Ray is part of the appeal of racing here. And he's not the only American driver, of course, to do that. Lisa Clark, who won the Shell Am Championship in North America last year, is driving in the championship here in Europe for many of the rounds, as well as Manuela Gosner. You can really get the impression as Christoph Herny makes way and allows Manuela Gosner through unhindered. She is on a mission very early on in this qualifying session, and she is one of the drivers, Nico, determined to bank an early qualifying lap.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously you generally want the track to come to you. You want the track to get warmer. There is a tipping point, we understand, and if the track gets too warm, it's not going to be beneficial for tire performance anymore. So it's a really interesting strategy here at Jerez with the temperatures that we expect already in the early morning hours. And Manuel Agostino, first sector purple, which is not saying as much in this early stage of the session, because not that many sectors have been complete, but she's really attacking, as you said, very, very early in the session.
One of the drivers that will be out qualifying is the Formula Racing driver, Ken Abe. And I just want to give mention to the fact that one of our official photographers for the Ferrari Challenge is Roberto Viva. And he has posted on social media a fantastic image of Ken Abe here at this track, kicking up some dust and almost elevating the entire side of the car airborne as he pushes really, really hard. Great photo there, Roberto. Well done, friend. And we will see Ken Abe out qualifying very, very soon, because he drives in the Copper Shell classes. Manuela Gosner gives us our first meaningful time of a 1:46.019 from the very, very fast young lady that drives for the Ineco Reparto Corsa Ram team. Manuela Gosner, Motohiko Isasaki has gone second fastest, with Ray Acosta going third fastest, but there are another 12 drivers out there, and one of those is the driver of the number 170 car that I was just talking about a moment ago, Ken Abe here for Formula Racing. Expect to see good things from Ken then, and we will see what he can do on and within the remaining 15 minutes. Remember what I'm saying about how the qualifying session goes through so quickly, and Ken Abe has, well, with 3 personal bests, he's gone second fastest and has usurped Motohiko Isasaki from that P2 place in qualifying at the moment. Time still to come from Michael Martin, Tibor Valent, Alexander Nussbaum, Pierluigi Alessandri, John Dillon, Thomas Gosner, Christoph Herny, Henry Hassid, Corinna Gosner, and also the Shark. The Shark's teeth of Von Skeltermar driving the 177 car that you'll see out on track very, very soon. The order is on the left-hand side of your screen then as to who is doing what in this Copper Shell qualifying session. We are live from the Jerez circuit in Spain, where Motohiko Isasaki, Nico, is on a hot one here.
Yeah, he is quick. 2 purple first sector, also very, very quick sectors from others, including Canate Manuel Agostner. But Motohiko Izuzaki, he is aiming for an improvement. The fact that the sectors are no longer purple means that someone else has completed a quicker lap, but Motohiko is improving personally, but you can still see 3 seconds off the pace, which had just been re-established by Manuela Gosner. You said how quick she was, and as a comparison, the quickest time thus far in Copper Shell this week was a 1:43.668 by this man, Motohiko Izuzaki. Manu Gosner just clocked in at 1:42.867, so 0.8 quicker. Make that, I mean, just magnificent lap, and she's going again.
And dare I say it, Nico, looking at the sector 1 time, going quicker still.
Yeah, she really has the hurry up early in this qualifying session, and maybe she's got some appointment later on and she has to nail this very, very quickly and get to that. I don't know, because she
You're
really
going to get a
has
slap for that.
I didn't specify the appointment. Certainly something very important, because she's really, really hurrying. Second sector not quite as quick because of traffic potentially.
Absolutely, well spotted. And that is, you know, and that becomes more prevalent, doesn't it, as the session goes on and more drivers join the session. You can't make your car disappear, and even though no one would deliberately impede any other driver, you can't just disappear your car off the circuit. Here we can see Manuela Gosner really, really pushing hard. Now this is the point where she has to take a line that is not optimum. She was on a quick lap, Nico, but realised that she's going to have to bail that lap. I mean, you know, she is already P1, so 1:42.867, which, as you quite rightly said, is the quickest we've seen from a Copper Shell driver across the entire weekend. So she's on a good trajectory.
And you can see there, she's very satisfied with what she put on the timing chart. And Motohiko Izuzaki just crossed the timing line, and he has reduced his deficit from 3.8 seconds to 4/10, so he is getting close, and we expect further drivers to get much closer to that 1:42.867. And as we said, it's such a competitive and such a close championship. Henry Hassid currently on his outlap. He was super quick in Balaton.
Yes.
And one of those that we will keep an eye on. So I don't think that Manuela will feel comfortable that she's secured pole already, but she can certainly be happy with the time she put on.
Thomas Gosner goes 4th fastest. He's another driver in the collection of drivers that all of whom are potential pole sitters. Thomas Gosner on his day, Nico, can be blistering quick. I'd just say, leaving it late in the session are the likes of Tibor Valint and Alexander Nussbaumer and John Dillon and Henry Hassid out on an outlap now, and so too is von Skeltermar. So some drivers choosing to use the, if you like, the second part of their qualifying session to set their times for setting the grid for race 1 to come a little bit later on today. So Manuela Gosner then with a 1:42.867, which is now only 4/10 quicker than Motohiko Izuzaki. Then comes Christoph Herney. Then it is Thomas Gosner, Pierluigi Alessandri, Ray Acosta, John Dillon. John Dillon, who's had, I think, 3 podiums out of 4 race starts this season, and, you know, is faring very, very well indeed. He's always going to be a danger man, I would suggest. So again, even though Manuela has set such a good time, Nico, nothing is set in stone yet, as we see our first track limits warning that actually goes to that family, the Gosner family, but it's Thomas Gosner that picks up a track limits warning, which I think is the first we've seen in our qualifying today.
It's certainly the first one here in Copper Shell. It didn't play a big role in the 488s, but for Thomas Gosner, that means the lap he's currently on and just about to complete will not count because of track limits. So even though he has made a significant improvement, his time on our chart doesn't change. So there is John Dillon, you rightly said. He is so quick and he's been so consistent already this season. P7, not up to the standard he set for himself this year, and he is working very, very hard to improve that starting position as the clock approaches 9 minutes remaining. John Dillon approaches the timing line out onto the start-finish straight. A 1:42.867, probably not quite, but it's a 1:43.825, and that is a P3.
I was talking to Matt Griffin, who coaches John Dillon. Matt Griffin, a hugely successful racing driver, as we all know. And we were talking about the improvement of John Dillon, and he said, you know what, for me, Dave, he said the 296 car really suits John's driving style, and he has really been able to master this car, which is why we've seen 3 podiums out of 4 race starts for John Dillon. Interestingly, some other drivers are picking up track limits warnings now, and they are the likes of Pierluigi Alessandri, also Corinna Gosner. So, yeah, all of a sudden we are seeing in this session, aren't we, where track limits are beginning to play a part in this, and they play, if I'm honest with you, Nico, I always feel they play a bigger part in qualifying than sometimes they do in a race, because in a race you get warnings, and you get 3 warnings before any punishment is meted out, if you will. Whereas in qualifying, the minute you step 2 wheels across the white line, you actually end up losing that entire lap. And if you'd set yourself up perfectly and you'd done a blistering lap, it all counts as nothing. So this is the 122 car that we're watching, which is not John Dillon, it is Andreas Rizzi. This is John Dillon, who we pick up now. Again, Sector 1 and Sector 2, personal bests for John. He's currently P3 in the qualifying chart. As he breaks the timing beam now, it's a non-improvement from John, so he's not bettered his P3. So at the moment in class, it would be a row 2 start if everything stayed as it is right now. But looks like he's going to go for an improvement again as we take a look at Thomas Gosner here. And there, as he bounces the car over the sausage curbs here, taking as much out of that as he possibly can. And Thomas Gosner is currently 5th fastest. And there we can see from a different angle how point and fly the car across the curbs. And Massimo Pepe, then team principal of MP Racing, you can see with the red headphones on there. Inside the garages. Here comes Henry Hassid. Now, Nico, personal best from Henry through Sector 1 and Sector 2. He's currently sitting P13. I can confidently predict this is going to be better as he breaks the timing beam. Well, Henry Hassid goes 3rd fastest, Nico.
Yeah, absolutely, and he is not done with this. He's done with this lap for sure, because you could see the traffic just ahead of him, so he's immediately slowed down, not taking anything out of the tires. But I'm confident in predicting he's going to go again. John Dillon is going again.
It's not been a good lap, this one.
No, not necessarily, even though the color coding of the sector is a little bit deceiving, as neither of them is terrible, but is not indicative of an improvement for the time being. You already identified Tibor Valent and Alexander Nussbaumer. Tibor Valent is in the pit lane and hasn't set a time yet.
Wow.
Alexander Nussbaumer, he is now going through the procession of getting the tires up to temperature, and he's going to go for a very quick one very shortly, I'm sure.
Motohiko Isasaki.
He looks happy enough.
Oh, he's such a lovely, emotional man who really wears his heart on his sleeve. Now, Manuela Gosner, as you can see, remains suited and booted inside the car. The reason for that is she's not going to go again unless someone provokes her to do so, and they're going to have to do so within the next minute or so to make it even worth her while to go back out again. She's standing by. She's not going to overstress those tires by needlessly lapping the track when at the moment her 1:42.867 remains very nearly half a second better than anybody else.
Yeah, and we always talk about this balance and the strategy in terms of do I go for another quick one and take more out of the tires, because the tires have to last the race distance later on.
Yes.
And when it's going to be 36 degrees air temperature this afternoon, it's not going to help the tires or the drivers to keep the tires in the perfect operational window. So you're probably leaning towards a lap less in qualifying and having more of the Pirelli P0s available for you in the race. So it's going to be interesting how the other drivers approach this. One driver who definitely has to put another crack at this is Alexander Nussbaumer, we feel, because he's totally out of position in P14. Von Skeltmer has improved to P6. Good previous lap, and let's see what he will do at the end of this one. He's certainly going to go for another one. Is this an improvement already? Let's see. He finishes the lap and he's still P6, so let's see if he attacks one more time. 3.5 minutes remaining.
I think you're right. I think he will go for it again. And inside the garages, there indeed is Matt Griffin, who I was talking about just a few moments ago, with his headphones on, standing there at the back, looking at the data from John Dillon, who at the moment is 4th fastest. That would give him a second row start within class for our Cope Shell drivers. And there you can see, pushing very, very hard, is the driver of the 136 car. That is Alexander Nussbaumer, who has done personal best, Nico, in Sector 1 and Sector 2. Now, it's a lowly qualifying position for Alexander Nussbaumer. It's P14. I think this is going to be an improvement for him as he heads to break the timing beam now. Alexander Nussbaumer then, is still not where he would like to be, but it is P5. He's really wrestling with the car, Nico.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see he's not quite one with the car and the track yet. And this is one of the moments that looks really, really nice on camera. It's not necessarily the quickest way around. Another driver who we still expect something from is Andreas Rizzi, our race winner from Balaton Race 2. He's currently P14 now, so he was bumped down the order, and we expect an improvement from him. And Henry Hassid, he has now put it into P2. First row start, he has edged Motohiko Isozaki for that P2 place. As Andreas Rizzi has completed a lap, it's a minimal improvement to P13. So still far away from where he was in Hungary. Expect him to go again potentially. Henry Hassid, let's see how much he decides to take out of the tires.
Yes, Henry Hassid, a very determined driver and always wants to extract the absolute maximum. He will not be satisfied with P2. He will want to go better than that. He's Sector 1. He's a 10th and 3/4 down on the previous time and has got a track limits warning, Nico. So he may as well forget this lap.
Yeah, and you can already see, I think, that he's not attacking the apexes with the same verve and sense of aggression. So his team certainly will have been on the radio immediately and said, hold off, this is not going to count. May just have enough time to go again, potentially, but Manuela Agosta certainly feels like she's done everything that she wanted to do in this session.
And this is Corinna Gosner that we're looking at right now, and we should say a really credit-worthy performance in qualifying. She's returned to racing. This is her first, to my knowledge, this is her first appearance for 2024, and she's put the car P7. That was a very, very good effort, Corinna. Well done. Yeah. Just behind her father Thomas, and of course a few cars behind her sister Manuela, who has gone quickest of anyone. Now, there is still 20 seconds remaining. The qualifying session is not over. Are there drivers on improvement trajectories? Well, potentially so. One of them being Alexander Nussbaumer. If he can gather the car all up, I mean, we've seen some very sideways moments from Alexander Nussbaumer during this qualifying session. We know just how good a driver Alexander is as he throws the 296 car. It's personal best through Sector 1. Let's see how he does through Sector 2. I'm just looking at him on the timing screen. I can't see any track limits warnings against the name of the Gome Motorsport Haupt Racing Team driver Alexander Nussbaumer, so looks like he has kept all the wheels in the within the confines of the white lines. As he accelerates now, then brakes, dabs the brakes then for the right-hander, runs out to the curbs. Another PB in Sector 2, Nico. This is potentially an improvement for Alexander Nussbaumer. He's got cars ahead of him here. And I think that was the Ken Abe car potentially. Don't think it impeded Alexander Nussbaumer too much. Let's see. He heads towards the line now. He's currently 5th fastest. And Alexander Nussbaumer hoping to find some time. He crosses the timing line and, well, regrettably, I tried to build it, but he didn't improve. Manuela Gosner, though, patiently sat inside the car, having put that lap of 1:42.867 down earlier on. Henry Hassid got to within 4/10. Congratulations, Manuela. Rotiform Pole Position Award will be presented. B1 on the grid will be presented. And an additional point tally will be awarded.
Yeah, Andreas Rizzi at the gun with a good lap, cruise from P14 to P7. So disaster avoided for the winner from Balaton Race 2, but she did it early, she did it quickly, she did it with a sense of urgency, and then sat in the car and waited for a challenge that eventually didn't come. Pole position, sorry for mixing up the Gosners, no mixing up Thomas and Corinna and Manuela. Good performance from the Gosners overall. I mean, Manuela P1, Thomas P6, and Corinna was bumped down to P8 eventually by Andreas Rizzi, but still very good. And there was, for a moment, the award you were referencing.
So the order is Manuela Gosner from Henry Hassid and Motohiko Isesaki. Then it was John Dillon, Alexander Nussbaumer, Thomas Gosner, Andreas Rizzi, and Corinna Gosner then ahead of von Skeltermar, Christoph Herney. Then it was Ken Abe, Pierluigi Alessandri, Ray Acosta, Mikael Martin, and Tibor Valint then not posting a time. Very, very interesting. We'll try and ascertain why Tibor Valint did not post a time. I was speaking to Tibor yesterday, but he was not able to put a time on in qualifying. So there we have it. Covershell qualifying done and dusted and completed here at the Jerez circuit in Spain. It is our 3rd round of Ferrari Challenge for 2024. Up next then for our qualifying, we'll be seeing our Trofeo Pirelli cars out there on track. Hello everyone, wherever you are around the world. You're welcome to join us for Ferrari Challenge Trofeo Pirelli qualifying 1 for this weekend, round 3 here in Jerez in Spain. Our mix of Pirelli and Pirelli Am drivers will be out there on track shortly. Some 21 cars will take to the track, which will make this 4.4 kilometer circuit very busy indeed. It's warm here in Spain. Track temperature 27 degrees already. Local time just ahead of 10 o'clock. We're at 25 degrees air temperature and hardly a breeze of just a mere 3 kilometers per hour to cool us down. It's going to be hot in those Ferrari 296 cars when it comes to qualifying and when it comes to the race this afternoon as well. And there you can see drivers who have been successful in previous qualifying sessions, like Manuel Agostino. We could see there, set it on pole position. And here we can see some of the drivers getting ready as the number 89 car of Klaus Zebranson standing by for Formula Racing to get out there on track and try and set the best time possible and therefore the best grid position possible for the race to come this afternoon. The number 12 car is driven by Gianmarco Mazzoletti. He's inside the car, ready to go. Drives for the Radici Automobili Best Lap team. Final instructions being given. Hello, good morning. I hope you're well. Headphones on. Listening to all the drivers' interactions with driver coaches and teams and engineers. We can see Hendrik Viol right at the back of that picture joining us. He drives for the Scuderia Prague team. And there you can see the number 88 car of Armin Arifpour, the Riller and Schnaut driver. And just behind is going to be, I think that's Hanno Laskowski. Yes, it is, as the pit lane is open right now with 5 seconds gone in this session already. Let's get those cars out on track. And it's Otto Blank who is going to be the first to make it out onto track. I spent some time with Otto Blank yesterday. He is one of our Ferrari Challenge Trofeo Pirelli Am drivers, driving for Luex Sportivo and Frank Herta Racing. And there you can see the Joker in the back, the number 11 car of Herbert Gies, driving for Maranello Motors. So the white strip across the top of the windscreen that you can see of these cars indicates that these drivers are Pirelli Am drivers. If it's a red strip across the top of the windscreen, that means the driver is a Pirelli driver. So it's a two-class mix within Trofeo Pirelli, the Trofeo Pirelli drivers and the Trofeo Pirelli Am drivers. Let's ride on board right now and see what it's like to be inside the car of Herbert Gies then, driving for Maranello Motors. You can see in the center of the dashboard there's a big screen which effectively becomes the racing driver's mirrors, because behind the driver there is a huge safety bulkhead which prevents a traditional, if you will, rear view mirror being hung from the roof of the car. And the drivers have that rear view screen, the image projected from the cameras onto that screen. And every driver tells me it's more immersive than the traditional rear view mirror. It gives them even better indication of who is chasing them behind. At the moment, no one is chasing the Herbert Gies car behind. He indeed, though, is chasing the car that's just in front of him of Otto Blank and goes past. So Otto Blank just making way for Herbert Gies then, as the drivers are just setting themselves up for this qualifying session around the 4.4 kilometers here. 13 turns. It is quite a technical circuit which doesn't afford you much time for relaxation. I mean, it's ridiculous to even use that word when it comes to motor racing. No driver is going to be out there relaxing, but there isn't even the moment really for the drivers to take a breath as Herbert weaves from side to side to generate some temperature into the Pirelli tyres. So the Maranello Motors driver here continuing his weaving motion, generating that critical warmth to bring the tyres up to temp. Riding on board, and it's a great privilege to have these on-board shots that we have inside these wonderful Ferrari 296 cars. Cars introduced into the Ferrari Challenge at the beginning of this season, and each and every driver that competes in the Ferrari Challenge, whatever class. Absolutely loving the performance that these cars are able to deliver to the drivers. They're the closest Ferrari Challenge car we've ever had to a full-blown GT3 car. And yeah, the drivers really appreciating everything that these cars can afford them in terms of the racing experience that they enjoy across this hugely successful one-make championship that graces the entire world with, here we are in the European Challenge, we have challenges also in the UK, in Japan, and of course in North America as well, where of course just a couple of weeks ago we were supporting the Formula One efforts in Montreal, and just up the road from us, of course, the Formula One drivers will be contesting the Spanish Grand Prix in Barcelona this weekend. I say just up the road, I am being somewhat economical with the truth. I wouldn't want to walk it, if I'm honest with you. Alongside me is Nico Spalek. I look forward to qualifying because it does give us an indication of who's really dialed into this track. And I think I really relish Trofeo Pirelli qualifying, Pirelli drivers and Pirelli AM drivers. Tradition suggests that the Pirelli drivers, they kind of hold on to later in the session before they go out and stretch their legs, as it were, allowing the Pirelli AM drivers to put some rubber down on this circuit before those Pirelli drivers take to the track.
Yeah, there is some historical data to that, very much so, and as we follow Herbert Geis around the track, he's currently P2, as you said, 148.221 for him. Klaus Brunz, the 145.747 was the first real benchmark for this session. Haven't seen a real meaningful time from any of our Pirelli drivers as of yet. And yes, absolutely. I mean, the qualifying session, is always interesting because it sets the grid for the race, and we don't really know where we stand, which teams, which drivers are really dialed in, have found their groove with the circuit, and it's especially true for a track like Jerez, which is not a every year or almost every year circuit like you have Mugello and some of the other circuits where we're at least every other year. Jerez has been a few years since we were here, 2016. And obviously with a new car like the 296 Challenge, it's not a clean slate, but there is a lot of more data that needs to be found and created, whereas in the final few years of the 488 you had some historical data of the same car on the same circuit, different weather conditions of course, but there was some more data that you could go back to and look at, and just try, while we used this setup in terms of aerodynamics last time, why not go from the same starting point? There's a lot more things that you need to discover here.
Well-made point, thank you. As we look at Klaus Branson, who's currently fourth fastest. Herbert Geis then is the quickest driver ahead of Otto Blank. Gianmarco Marzioletti was initially right at the very top of the chart, but what's interesting for me in the early stages of this qualifying session, Nico, is we're seeing a number of lap times being deleted from drivers. Now, the reason they would have a lap time deleted is because they have put all four wheels over the white lines that delineate the circuit. And yeah, I believe that the cost of that is really great in qualifying because the entire lap no longer counts. So all the effort, everything that's been expended on a lap, and as we look at Klaus Branson, who's 1.5 seconds down on any other driver, he's on a really, really hot lap now, and if he can keep all four wheels within the white lines, this is going to be a very good lap from the Formula Racing driver. Yet to see any of our Pirelli drivers out there on track, although I am led to believe Giacomo Altoe has just left the pit lane and is on his way out. So this could be a very good time from Klaus Branson. Let's see if he nailed it all through the final sector. Well, Klaus Branson, Nico, delivers a time which is 1.9 seconds quicker than anybody else with a 1:42.128. A very good time for Klaus Branson indeed. And can you give us a reference? What was the best time, Nico, from the Trofeo Pirelli drivers during perhaps one of the free practice sessions, just to give us a benchmark?
Yeah, the free practice best time was a 1:42.5 in the test, which was in a different weather condition, a lot cooler. But later in the day, it was a 1:41.629, and that was actually from Angelo Fontana, an M driver. So, which may show that the drivers follow different strategies and different priorities there, but it also showed that certainly at that time the track was quicker. We don't expect this morning hour necessarily the track to be quite as quick. The drivers certainly are. But that 142, I think, is not necessarily the end of the road. I think we will see the 141s, and we never know. We've got so quick drivers in this field. Among the Pirelli and the Pirelli M drivers, it may even get close to a 140 high. We will find out. It's 21 minutes.
Whoa, Nico, forgive me.
Klaus Brunson found a very, very precarious moment there, but also found a lot of talent in salvaging that.
We'd seen just in replay a few moments ago how Klaus Branson was really attacking that chicane and bouncing the car across the curbs. Well, he bounced with such fervour on this occasion that it upset the back end of the car. He did, as you rightly say, he put it all together, but that effectively mucked up that lap for him.
Yes, I think that's that's a fair assessment.
Look
there we
this.
see it again, and
carrying understeer into the first, and then, well,
held it together quite nicely.
Look at that. We love to see cars going sideways, but as you have said earlier on, it's not the quickest way around the track, Nico.
No, absolutely. But he is P1 for the time being, and not with a shabby lap whatsoever, as Danilo Del Favaro, with the car number 9 for Penske Sportwagen Hamburg, he is going again, trying to improve on his current P6 position, and he is delivering that, and he's moving up to P3 overall, which is also P3 in class for the time being, a 143.756. And almost on cue, with 20 minutes remaining, we can see a number of drivers filing out of pit lane, and among them are Ben Svellen, James Owen, Andrew Morrow, Luca Ludwig, Marco Zanazzi. So it's going to be a few more minutes until those drivers have completed their outlaps, have gone through the warm-up routines, and then we will see some more very, very quick and competitive times.
You're right. Currently, it's Klaus Branson from Angelo Fontana, then it's Urban Guys, Danilo Del Favaro, Gianmarco Marzioletti, who we can see there crossing the timing line. Then it's Otto Blank, Laura Villas, David Akabadze, Andreas Berg Sorensen, Hanno Laskowski, Hendrik Viol, and Armin Arafor. Those are the drivers that have set times so far in this qualifying session as we watch the number 71 car of the Luex Sportivo Herta Racing driver Otto Blank, who dives into the pit lane, Nico, with gusto to come in and just make adjustments potentially to tyre pressures and setups to maximize the car when he will return, I feel sure, for further efforts in the 18.5 minutes that remain in this qualifying session. So we look at the number 80 car right now of Angelo Fontana, second fastest. I wouldn't say, looking at the sector times, that this lap necessarily is going to see him going from P2 to P1. But I've been proven wrong on so many occasions in the past, it's almost painful to mention. Well, sure enough, as he crosses the timing line, he doesn't improve, which gives some vindication perhaps to what I was saying there. It is Branson from Fontana and Guys, then Del Favaro and Marzioletti. They are the top 5 drivers. Philippe Barron is out there on track, and let's see what Philippe Barron can do as the clock ticks down. We have 17.5 minutes remaining in this qualifying session. And right, let's ride on board with the headmaster. Sector 1, purple Nico. Philippe Barron on a mission here.
But also being monitored and seen to have run afoul of track limits by the steward. So this lap, unfortunately for him, doesn't count. However, second sector, purple again. So the pace is certainly in the car. He will be aware that this lap won't count. So probably he will still go through the rhythm and he will try and find his groove with the car and then go out again and give it another shot after this one. So it's still, even though it doesn't count, it's going to be interesting where the clock stops at the end of this lap, because it will give us an indication of what can be expected and what is possible. Currently a 1:42.128 is the quickest time that was set. That would have been a 1:42.114. So he rides on board. There is that first right-hander. Then you can see this turn, it kind of drops to the inside and pulls the car towards the apex. But you can't allow yourself to get too deep through that turn 2, because that compromises your exit on turn 3. And then you have that long winding remainder of that first sector as we switch back to Luca Ludwig, another of the very, very quick drivers in the Ferrari.
Luca Ludwig, who for Mertel Motorsport, Sector 1 and Sector 2, both purple sectors for the driver of the number 8 car, who, to my knowledge, has kept it within the white lines, and therefore everything would suggest that unless he falls foul of those rules in the final sector, this will be a very good lap from Luca Ludwig then. Best time, a 1:42.128. Benz Valent is also improving as well. Here comes Luca Ludwig then, about to break the timing beam, and I would suggest will go P1, and indeed he does, with a 1:41.680. 1:41.680. Can Benz Valent wrestle that provisional P1 position away from Luca Ludwig? We have one turn to wait before finding out whether that will be the case, as the Ferrari Budapest driver heads towards the timing line right now. Benz Valent then, well, he does usurp Luca Ludwig by a margin of 1.5 tenths, and he goes P1 with a 1:41.522. So these are Pirelli drivers by dint of them having the red strip across the top of the windscreen. This, however, is an AM driver by dint of the white strip, and that is the quickest of the AM drivers that we're looking at, Klaus Zebranson.
Indeed, and we've got Marco Zanazzi, who is trying to move up the order in the AMs. He also a race winner already this year, currently P9 in class, but there is the number 86 car, Benz Valent, who is currently P1, just took that first position overall as well as in class, took it away from Luca Ludwig, who'd just taken it away a few moments earlier, and he is trying once again. First sector, excellent. Second sector, still very, very good. He is in striking distance, but he's got traffic.
How did he avoid that? Now, you can see that he's bailed this lap because there's absolutely no way he's going to continue to improve. Luca Ludwig then, he accelerates now and will go again. He's got to reset and do everything all over again. Luca Ludwig, currently second fastest for Mertel Motorsport. Very experienced German driver who comes from fine racing stock. The Ludwig name is renowned, not only in Germany but worldwide. This was the save, Nico. Perhaps we'll see it here. He was absolutely full chat flat, and then came across a car that was slightly slower and therefore had to take evasive action, and that completely ruined the lap. The number 69 car of Marco Zanazzi, as you were saying then, his personal bests across all 3 sectors, crosses the timing line now, and for Marco Zanazzi that makes him 3rd fastest within group. Hendrik Viol is 4th fastest. Is Klaus Zebranson and Angelo Fontana ahead of those as we look at the number 91 car making his way round the track once again. Philippe Baron, who's 3rd fastest, Nico.
Yeah, indeed, and he just improved up to P3. The time is 1:41.866, so not quite up to par with the time that he had completed. However, ran foul of track limits, and that just underscores what you said before, how relevant track limits are in qualifying, because it's that one lap, and especially with the weather conditions we expect this afternoon, lots of heat, the drivers will look to complete the fewest lap as possible to achieve their goal. So every additional attempt at trying to set a quick lap, it costs them, not only in qualifying, but also potentially in the race later on. So having that one optimum lap taken away, it really, really stings.
It does, as Luca Ludwig brings his car into the pit lane. Let's ride on board once again, because it gives us a terrific vantage point. Now this is setting up and not at quali pace yet. Philip Barron just contemplating the track ahead, and you can see he's pretty relaxed in there. He's third fastest. Philip Barron, of all drivers, will never be satisfied with third fastest. So what he's trying to do is buy himself some track time here, Nico. Drivers work in conjunction with their engineers back in the garages in terms of spotting where cars are out there on track and where they can find some time to build some space ahead of them so that they've got a relatively clear lap ahead. And here you can see Philip continuing his setting up, vigorously weaving from side to side, generating some temperature into the tyres, and now he goes for it. This is a brilliant onboard shot. I love the onboard shots that we're able to give you as he rattles across the curbs then. And this is Philip Barron. We ride on board with now, going for a hot lap around this 4.4 kilometer circuit. Brakes now into turn one, as Nico has suggested. You ride uphill, not dissimilar to that at Spielberg in Austria. And then this is a very difficult sequence to get absolutely right. Philip Barron, though, appears to have got it nailed perfectly thus far. We're riding on board with him, running the clock with him as well. Leaving braking to the very last moment. You run a bit wide here so that you can kiss the apex on the exit of the turn. And then this long straight that you have here in Jerez circuit, as Philip Barron gives it everything again. 50-meter marker is where you start to brake, and that's precisely what he does. Back on the gas again. Philip Barron, who took us for a lap yesterday. There are the graphics on the right-hand side of the screen. Fifth gear, 213 kilometers per hour before dropping it down to fourth once again. Back on the throttle with 100%. Braking again, very last moment down into third gear. Next is another right-hander. Philip takes the curves. To my knowledge, I think he's keeping all four wheels within the white lines now. This very, very tricky chicane. Obviously, I'm wrong, because Philip somewhere where I didn't pick up and Nico did has run afoul once again of track limits.
Unfortunately, Philip Barron again with a good lap. I don't know if it would have been good enough for a provisional pole position. There are a few spots where there were actually cameras which help race control, which are exactly spots where they use cameras to identify, did the driver get over the white line or didn't they?
You can see how frustrated inside the car Philip Barron is with the decision, as Giacomo Altoe goes third fastest in the number 2 Ferrari 296. Philip was well unhappy with that.
Yeah, and this is one of the slots after turn 1 and the outside. This is where one of the cameras is positioned. I mean, this is like if you're unhappy with the video assistant referee in football or something, it's exactly the same story. If you're still on the white line, you're okay. If you are outside, and it doesn't matter if it's just a few millimeters, if all 4 wheels are outside, they will say, well, factual decision, you exceeded, that lap won't count. And I mean, those are the rules. The rules are the same for everybody, but it must be hugely frustrating if an amazing lap, and let's not forget the Philip Barron lap that he put in earlier was about 3.5 tenths quicker than the current pole time. So he can't have exceeded the track so far that it would have been that much of a difference. But, you know, outside is outside in that case, and therefore I can understand the frustration. No frustration for the time being. Giacomo Altoe, no track limits registered for him, and he is approaching that chicane. Right-hander, left-hander, and another right-hander. Then that quick blast of the throttle going towards that final hairpin, out of which he will emerge full throttle towards the timing line. Rounds the final turn to the outside. And now it's a 141.522. It's a 141.4. 690 because he did indeed, I'm sorry, track limits also registered for Giacomo Alto. It just goes to show that it can bite you any moment.
Well, there you can see a big queue of cars inside the pit lane as Ben Svalint, Luca Ludwig are the top two at the moment. What have we got? 6.5 minutes remaining. It's do or die, right at the end of the session. Hendrik Viol then in conversation there. Hendrik Viol, Nico, in my opinion, it'll be a second row start within class if everything stays the way it is at the moment. There you can see Angelo Fontana, who has gone second fastest for our Pirelli AM drivers. And actually, Giacomo Altoe is one of only 5 drivers that's still out there on track trying to improve in this qualifying session. So Giacomo Altoe then currently third fastest. He wants to go quicker than Luca Ludwig and Ben Svalint ahead of him. Now, I can't see a TL on our timing screen, so for the moment, Giacomo Altoe is doing a good job on this lap, Nico.
Yes, indeed. I'm very cautious with what I say because I've been wrong just the previous lap. But indeed, everything that you said makes total sense. I can not see any indication to the contrary. So, final turn. And I think this is going to be his final attempt because whatever happens, I think tire preservation will be paramount after this one. So, do or die, pole or not.
Yeah, he's done it.
He's done it. 141.470 just edges Ben Svalint by 0.05 of a second.
It's close.
It is that close, and there is no other challenger really out there who would jeopardize that pole position. Interestingly, Max Mugello, Pirelli driver, hasn't set a time, so he's at the very bottom of the queue, but he's in the pit lane, so he's theoretically able within 5 minutes to go out, but it seems unlikely.
I would agree with that. So in replay here, just some of the shots of the Emil Frey racing driver really pushing his 296 for all it's worth to give him that 141.470, which is, as Nico said, 5/100ths quicker than anybody else, and gives him provisional. And I say provisional because we've still got 5 minutes remaining on this clock for this qualifying session for our Ferrari Challenge Trofeo Pirelli and Trofeo Pirelli AM drivers. So for the Pirelli drivers, it's Giacomo Altoe, Ben Svalint, Luca Ludwig, Philip Barron. They are the top 4. For the AM drivers, Klaus Sebranson, Angelo Fontano, Marco Zanassi, and Hendrik Viol. They are the top 4 for our AM drivers. You can see all that from the left-hand side of your screen where we bring you the order as well. Couple of drivers perhaps out of position in qualifying, one of whom being Andrew Morrow, Nico, as you point out there. P13 overall, but within class for Andrew Morrow, the Charles Hurst driver, it's P9.
Not where he was at Ballerton and not where he expects to be. Almost, well, he almost had pole position, Ben Svalint, as he walks through the pit lane. At a P2, certainly a very, very good and respectable start for the young Hungarian driver. I mean, I report he is still going, currently P15 in class. That's P19 overall, so he's still trying to improve and move up the order. And as we said, it's still time on the clock, so theoretically everybody's still with a chance to improve their positions. But tire preservation, with the heat index that we have and expect this afternoon.
Is it fair to say, Nico, and you're much more of an analyst over these things, that probably with the temperatures that we're going to have this afternoon when the cars are racing, it kind of makes that risk-reward strategy with regards to tyres even more prevalent, does it not?
Yeah, I think this qualifying session, all the factors that make every lap even more important come together. You've got the track limits. You've got the fact that you want to put at least amount of laps into the tires that you possibly can get away with.
Yes.
I mean, ideally, you try and set your lap time on your out lap and come back in, all in one lap, which I know is not possible, but that's what you would like to do. Gianmarco Mazzanetti doesn't look unhappy.
No. Just do the hair.
interestingly, Giacomo Altoe is still going around the track at pace, which, I mean, he's not looking like he's improving, but he's only 2/10 down from...
So he's still driving quickly, isn't he?
Yeah, indeed, which, given that there is no challenger, I mean, there must be a strategy by the Ferrari racing team.
Yeah.
But he's going a little bit against the grain, let's put it like that.
Yes, not following our prediction in terms of there indeed is the car of the Ferrari racing driver Giacomo Altoe. Then with a 1:41.470, he is the quickest, and this is not going to be an improvement from Giacomo. What have we got? 1.5 minutes remaining on the clock, and as near as makes no difference, I think it's fair to say that the qualifying session is done, really, with Giacomo Altoe, P1 for Trofeo Pirelli drivers. For our Pirelli AM drivers, it is Klaus Zibranson. Do still have drivers out there pushing hard. Hanno Laskowski being one of them from, ironically, the same team, Ferrari Racing, of course. Hanno Laskowski is currently 6th fastest in class. Is he going to be able to improve? Well, it is possible. It's right at the final stages of this qualifying session, but he is going again. And I'm just taking a look. Yeah, no, actually, this lap is not going to count because he's got a track limits warning. I just wondered if he ran wide there, and sure enough, that was picked up. And subsequently, all his efforts on this lap will be futile because he ran afoul of the track limits. So the order is pretty much set then. The Rotiform pole position awards will be going to Giacomo Altoe and also to Klaus Zibranson, as no one is going to better them. All 19 drivers have done everything they can. Very interesting to see, as Nico pointed out, that Max Mugelli didn't set a time, and interestingly in the Cope-Shell qualifying, Cope-Shell earlier, that father of Benz Valint, Tibor Valint, didn't set a time in qualifying. So a couple of drivers who will be starting from the back of the pack when it comes to race time a little bit later on today. We'll bring you the results in graphics in just a few moments as we see our driver that takes the pole position, Giacomo Altoe, bring the car back into the garage here, driving for that official Ferrari dealer, Ferrari Sportivo. So Giacomo then, talented young driver making a name for himself, that's for sure. Pirelli drivers, Giacomo Altoe from Benz Valint, Luca Ludwig and Philippe Barron. Our AM drivers, it's Klaus Zibranson, Angelo Fontana, Marco Zanassi and Hendrik Viol. So congratulations being afforded there. Quietly went about it, really. He made no song and dance and just delivered when he needed to deliver. Well done. This is the sequence then of Giacomo Altoe heading to that P1 position. Confirmation of the results then will appear on screen momentarily as we look at the start-finish straight here at the Jerez circuit. We'll take a look at who did what and where in that qualifying session, as Giacomo then is presented with the Rotiform pole position award. Well done, friend. Another P1 start, and of course another critical point in the Drivers' Championship. Charming young man he is, really, and very, very good racing driver, no question. So then, as I promised you, the results from our qualifying for our Trofeo Pirelli drivers. It's Giacomo Altoe from Benz Valint and Luca Ludwig and Philippe Barron P4. Literally 4/10 between the top four, and then Max Mugelli not setting a time in qualifying. For the AM drivers, it's Klaus Sebranson ahead of Angelo Fontana and Marco Zanassi. Hendrik Viol, Herbert Guys, Hanno Laskowski, Danilo Del Favaro and Gianmarco Marzialetti. They occupy the top 8 positions ahead of Andrew Morrow, Laura Villas, James Owen, Andreas Berg Sorensen. Welcome back, Andreas. David Akabadze, Otto Blank, and Armin Arifpour completing the Pirelli AM drivers. So from our Pirelli and Pirelli AM qualifying, thank you for watching. Goodbye for now.
Ha rispolverato la pilota in grande formato a un po' di luce è tornato a forse esagero, ma così un po' anche romantica, questi piloti che vanno e poi ritornano. Ritorniamo anche noi sul timetable, sono le 10:30, anzi meglio dire le 10:35 di questo sabato, non italiano ma sabato spagnolo, con dalle ore 11 avremo la terza sessione, la Coppa Shell AM, quindi abbiamo un attimo di tempo per bere un bicchiere d'acqua, grazie per l'attenzione, e a fra pochissimo per la terza sessione di qualifica qui Autodromo di Jerez della Frontera, terzo round della serie Europa di questo straordinario campionato Ferrari Challenge. Estamos en la Ferrari Challenge, en esta jornada de sábado ha concluido ya el segundo clasificatorio de la jornada. Estamos hablando del trofeo Pirelli, del trofeo Pirelli AM. Como decimos, categoría ya concluida en cuanto a clasificatorios para las carreras de esta jornada de sábado. Está aumentando y de qué manera la temperatura, estamos ya en los 28 grados y no hemos alcanzado las 11 de la mañana. Evidentemente hay mucha más temperatura en el ambiente que la que marca el termómetro, porque ya sabemos que aquí, por la particular forma de valle del trazado del circuito de Jerez, pues la temperatura va a subir. Y mucho más que lo hace porque hemos asistido a una sesión clasificatoria ciertamente intensa, interesante, tan solo 52 milésimas de diferencia entre los primeros clasificados en la categoría, como decimos en la categoría Pro, una categoría más que reñida. Enseguida vamos a ir con el tercer clasificatorio, 11 de la mañana, la Copa Sela, y las carreras 2, 3 y cuarto, 4 y media de la tarde en este fin de semana, en esta jornada de sábado de la Ferrari Challenge.
forte, no? Fattore 50. Fattore da 50.
Hello everyone and welcome to Jerez for qualifying for our Copa Am drivers in the Ferrari Challenge. This is round 3 of our 2024 calendar. We are here in Spain where the weather is utterly glorious. So it's going to be hot for the drivers in qualifying. It's going to be even hotter for their races, which will come a little bit later on today. This is the track then, 4.4 kilometers, and depending on how you count, there are 13 turns, and it's quite a tricky circuit for the drivers to get the best out of. 8 right-handers, 5 left-handers. The circuit was actually opened back in 1985. We are just a few kilometers away from the city of Jerez de la Frontera, where, as you can see, the track temperature 31 degrees, air temperature 27 degrees already, and just a breath of wind at 3 kilometers per hour to try and keep our drivers a little bit cool. But of course, when you're in the 296 Challenge car, well, it's going to be very warm for those drivers, that's for sure. You can see our conversations going on then just ahead of this qualifying session, which gets underway in around about 2 minutes from now. The mix of some 20 drivers that we will have. Andrea Levi that we can see there. There is Lisa Clark. Lisa Clark is the Ferrari Challenge North America Copa Am champion. And she won that championship last year, choosing to race in here in Europe as well as in North America. In Montreal, of course, in support of Formula One just a couple of weeks ago was Lisa. And she loves racing here in Europe. Paolo Scudieri then. Final stages of preparation before jumping into his car. Well done, Paolo. Good thumbs up from him, the Samo car driver. Paolo Scudieri. Then crash helmet, hands device going on right now. 30 minutes of qualifying for our Copa Am drivers. Andrea Levi once again then, just having conversations in the pit lane. And it's all about what they can do in this qualifying session. Eric Cheong, he's about to jump into his car. The 198 car, which is very familiar, had a good time of it, of course, in Balaton in Hungary, as he shoehorns himself into the 296 Challenge car. Eric is a fine driver indeed. The opportunity to sit down and have a conversation with him on Thursday here at the circuit, and there you can see the 186 car of Jan Sandman driving for Kessel Racing, coached by Charlie Hollings, who will be in his ears on the radio during the course of this qualifying session. Jan Sandman then, the belt's being done up to make sure he is perfectly safe in the car. Andrea Levi once again getting the earpiece in so that his communications network with the garage is complete. You can just see in the background there also the car of Louis Perusquia, the 119 car. This is Henrik Kamstrup, who drives for Formula Racing. The very distinctive metallic blue colors of Henrik Kamstrup, and there once again is the Rosso Corsa racer Louis Perusquia. Louis, another driver that races not only here in Europe but also in the North America Ferrari Challenge as well. And Ferrari Challenge, this wonderful one-make series that stretches across the world with series here in Europe, also in North America, but not only, because we race in Japan and the UK as well with separate series. Cars making their way out, including the car of Jan Sandman that we can see heading up the hill. France Kravitz, Guy Favet, and they're the 171 car of Andrea Levi then, now about to head out on track. So 30 minutes of, or just under 30 minutes of qualifying action to come from our Ferrari Challenge Copa Am drivers. And there is the longest straight that you can see here at this 4.4 kilometer Jerez circuit as further drivers make their way out on track, including Stephen Earle in the number 100 car. Just gone past our camera position. Mutlu Tarzev for the Emil Frey Sportivo racing team. Mutlu, a fine Copichel Am driver. A nice walk round there as Lisa Clark jumps into the number 130 car. The Pellin racing driver, Stefano Pellin, team principal of that garage, looking after Lisa Clark, among others, racing in the Ferrari Challenge and Copichel Am. So they're jumping into the car, ready to go out for this qualifying session in one of the most attractive looking cars out there in terms of color schemes. And here we can see then as the cars round the final turn, for the first time of asking in this qualifying session, 30 minutes on the clock for all of our drivers. They choose when to go and when to make the most of the track that is available to them. As the outer house Ulrich driver, one of the first to show. So it's going to be a few moments or so before we see some meaningful times on the board for our drivers. And there is the steering wheel, and as you can see, it's quite a complicated bit of kit. The Ferrari 296, then introduced at the beginning of this season, is the next generation, if you will, of Ferrari Challenge racing car. Every driver absolutely loving these cars. As von Skeltermar offers his best wishes to Lisa Clark, who's about to go out in qualifying. It's the very car that we're looking at the back end of right now. Saw Andrea Levi in various stages of getting ready, and here comes Maurizio Pittori jumping into his 296 Challenge car. Drives for the Radici Automobili team, and you can also see the 104 car of Andreas Koenig there. Andreas, I was talking to him just a few moments ago, and he was saying that in this qualifying session and in the race, he said yesterday, you know what, during a free practice session, Dave, I came out and I jumped out of the car, and honestly, I was soaking, such as the temperature inside the car. It'll be really, really tough for these drivers, that's for sure. Alongside me is Nico Spalek. So, yeah, we have a really, really pleasant temperature at the moment. When it comes to race time this afternoon, it's going to be hotter than ever.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's already 28 degrees now, air temperature, track temperature 32 degrees, and those are only going to climb, and our Shell Am drivers will be up last on the grid and on the track this afternoon, and that means when the heat index is the highest, it will be imperative for them to stay cool in any shape or form that is available to them. And one way to stay cool is obviously to minimize the task you put in front of yourself, and that means minimizing the number of cars you have to try and overtake, because that is one thing that's always more difficult than defending or just moving up the road. And Steve Earle is doing his level best to move up the order and position himself, and he does that in a very, very good way. A 1:48.932 means that he's currently P1 on the left-hand side of our timing screen, and on the screen for you in the dynamic rankings, he's currently P1. Shintaro Katsu puts himself into P2, and there he is, the car of the man who has just propelled him up to P2, and he's gonna go again.
The outer house Ulrich driver, Franz, how do I pronounce his surname? You being German, how do I get it correct?
Kiewitz.
Kiewitz. Franz Kiewitz is currently 4th fastest. Guy is 3rd fastest. Hassan Debussy goes 5th fastest. Tal Al-Sher and Ramos out there as well, but we are watching the Shintaro Akatsu car. Sector 1 and Sector 2 are both coloured purple, as you can see from the graphics at the bottom of your screen. If they're indicative of that colour, that means Shintaro has gone quicker than anybody else out there on track. I'm just carefully looking at the timing screen to see if there are any track limits violations. None that I can see at the moment, so this should and could be a very good lap from Shintaro Akatsu, who has one turn still to do. And he completes that turn and heads towards the timing line now, which is just under the lounge, which embraces the start-finish straight. It's referred to as like a UFO, really. And Shintaro Akatsu with a 1:46.769, Nico, in the early stages of this qualifying session. Joe's quickest. The Cope Shalom drivers have been here testing and free practice. Best free practice time we've seen, Nico?
1:43.596 from our Cope Shalom driver. So we're still around 3 seconds and a little bit away from that. Not sure that we will see that time matched, but because it was under different weather conditions, different time of the day. But there is certainly still some air in terms of what the drivers can and will achieve by the end of this session. There is no way, no words really to describe what Zoe Skrimkles has done in this championship this season already.
Absolutely remarkable. He came into the championship as a complete rookie driver, never having raced before. Not that you would be able to ascertain that from his performance out there on track, which has been nothing other than blistering.
Absolutely, and if you include the Rotiform Pole Position Awards, which along with the championship point go to the driver who finished at the very top of the qualifying session, he has collected more trophies than he has contested races. That is a statistic.
Yes. Guy Favet does not improve, stays P3. The driver that drives for the Superior FMA team is currently 3rd fastest. Stephen Earle has just gone 4th fastest. It is at the moment Tal Al-Sher, though, who has just taken away the pole position from this man, Shintaro Akatsu, who's looking to improve right now, though, Nico, with purple Sector 1 and purple Sector 2. As he heads to break the timing beam now, Shintaro Akatsu takes a big lump of time, very nearly a second out of Tal Al-Sher's time. With a 1:45.385 is, for the moment, the one. Now, this is the car that I was describing earlier on from Josef Schumacher, one of the most colourful Ferrari 296s that graces any racetrack around the world.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment, and it gets even more interesting and detailed the closer you get to it and really look at it. But from afar, it's certainly the color scheme that really dominates as we take another look at the Franz Kiewitz car, who's going through the final sector with traffic ahead of him.
Now, of course, this car has had some motor racing glitterati at the inside the cockpit in the past. Nico? Franz Kiewitz, Waterhouse Ulrich, being coached, of course, by Timo Glock. And following Hassan Debussy at the moment out there. Here's Andrea Levi. And he's done a personal best through Sector 1. He's currently 5th fastest and quicker than anyone through Sector 2, and he's very nearly 3/10 up on the time of Shintaro Akatsu as Jan Sandman goes P2 in qualifying. Good lap from the Kessel Racing driver, Jan Sandman. Here comes Andrea Levi then. Is this going to be a time that can elevate him to the very top of the chart here? Let's see as he rounds the final turn and heads towards the timing line. All will be revealed very quickly. And Andrea Levi, well, does go to the top with a margin of some 4/10. It's a 1:44.961.
Indeed, Andrea Levi, he is P2 overall in the standings, having secured 37 points to this moment, and we would like to add point number 38, and thereby help his championship quest, because that's certainly one of the things that's firmly in his side. But it's a closely contested championship with Andreas Koenig just 4 points behind, Eric Chung also in the mix, Hendrik Kamstrup, and you already mentioned Zoe Scrimpius, and we'll get to him when he hits the track for real, because we expect him in his light blue Greek flag colored, because that's his origin. We expect him to figure in this session in quite a visible way. And there is Hendrik Kamstrup, I believe the 113 car, yes indeed, he's currently P5, and there is Andreas Koenig, who did a masterclass of a qualifying session back in Balaton, if you remember,
absolutely.
where he did it best by doing nothing for the vast majority of the track, and sometimes doing nothing, the vast majority of the session, and sometimes doing nothing is the hardest part of it.
And he's heading towards the timing line now, and well, the 104 car goes quickest for Go Motorsport Haupt Racing Team with a 1:44.860. Unfortunately for Andreas Koenig, his pace in qualifying and his success in qualifying at the Balaton circuit, well, life was very difficult for him in the races.
Yeah, that's true, but just to give some explanation, and go find that qualifying session if you can on YouTube or on some of the other Ferrari media channels. We were on a drying track. There had been rain before, and he just held on and held on, and there was the threat of rain in the air, and it looked like, well, it could rain again, and everybody else went out to put a banker in, and he held on, and advised by his team, and you talked to him, and he said, well, you know, it wasn't down to me, it was down to the team, and they made exactly the right call, and he went out very late, and the track was at the quickest at that moment, and he was at his quickest at that moment, and he got pole position in that race. As you say, it didn't come together eventually, but it just shows that it's a team effort, and he really reaped the benefit in that quali session. He's going to try and replicate that. Currently, he is in second position behind Andrea Levi, trying to get to another pole.
Yes, he is. Not going to be this lap, I don't think. The order is Levi, Koenig, Akatsu, Chung, Sandman, Kamstrup, Scudieri, Cher. Then it's Fave and Debussy. They are the top 10. So Andreas Koenig then crossing the timing line and going for another lap as we go into the HRT garage there. Haupt Racing Team, a renowned racing team, it has to be said, and delighted that they are here in the Ferrari Challenge, proving to be the most revered and successful one-make championship anywhere in the world, with these wonderful prancing horse cars, and Maurizio Pittori out there qualifying among the other 19 drivers that accompany. It's a big pack of cars, and like I was alluded to, when they're out there for racing late afternoon this afternoon, it's going to be like a real cauldron inside the car in terms of temperature, I would suggest. As we watch Lisa Clark, who, as I mentioned in our preamble to the program, is the current North America Copa Am champion, and doing a dual campaign of racing both here in Europe and also in North America too. Paolo Scudieri climbs uphill in the turn that's reminiscent of turn number 1 at the Spielberg circuit in Austria. Very different here, though. It's the only similarity I would suggest. Eric Chung has just gone second fastest. So Eric Chung with a 1:44.556. And I have to say, the discipline, Nico, with our Copa Am drivers, as now we do see Zoe Scrimpias, that Nico had kind of given us a bit of a teaser of what to expect from the yellow and green car. But yeah, the track limits warnings are few and far between during Copa Am qualifying, Nico, which they played a big part in qualifying for our other sessions that we've seen today. But at the moment, the drivers are the exception of a couple, doing a pretty good job of making sure that those 296s stay within the white lines.
Yeah, maybe it's a little bit of a learning effect that they saw some of the other drivers being caught out and having too many laps deleted for track limits, and they rather stay cautious because they know that every lap that they can not do, don't need to do, is one lap less on the tire wear, which is going to be very great in the heat index that we expect later on. So there is a lot of benefit in not doing more laps than you absolutely have to do to get your top grid position. Great graphics and statistics with the telemetry here brought to us and brought to you on the screen. As there we can see Eric Chung, who is P2, and he is finishing that lap. It is an improvement in terms of time, but it is not an improvement in terms of position for the time being, but it consolidates his second place. And Eric Chung, obviously one of our winners from Balaton, won there in race 1 and got another podium from race 2, so very, very strong form, and very, very strong form from Zoe Scrimpius. That race 1 in Balaton was the only one he didn't finish on the podium yet, but he made up for it by finishing race 2 at the very top step of the podium. Just such a rich vein of form and just an ability. He is, as you can see, personal bests in Sector 1, Sector 2. It's not quite up to qualifying speed, so he will set a time, but it's not going to be a top 1 for now. But the next lap that he's going to be on, that's the one that we expect to be really, really good.
Yes, it's the lap that he's on now that we are expecting to perhaps potentially trouble our front runners in qualifying at the moment. So Zoe Scrimpias then, and there is the telemetry graphics that Nico was talking about. As you can see, on the rev limiter now, 4th gear, up to 5th gear now as you climb uphill, very nearly 200 kilometers per hour, back down into 5th, bang on the throttle, and then braking hard into the right-hander. Still getting round here at 140 kilometers per hour. Hold on for dear life as the car approaches 200 kilometers per hour. Downhill now, and we'll reach a max of maybe 250 kilometers per hour just before you have to be hard onto the wonderful brakes in these 296 challenge cars. Zoe Scrimpias then, personal best through Sector 1. Who's he contesting and competing with? The likes of Levi, Chung and Koenig, and Zoe Scrimpias has fallen foul, Nico, of track limits, which I didn't pick up. You just picked up on the timing screen.
Yeah, I didn't see it on the track. There are 3 spots on the circuit where there is a camera positioned just to watch the track limits, and all those 3 are in the first sector. And it's many times that effectively the video assistant referee buzzes in to race control and says, oh, nope, please ignore that lap, which is how it works in qualifying. In the race later on, it's a little bit of a different mechanism. You're not punished for the first time you run foul of the track limits, but there is a building effect almost, and it's the 4th time that you are being adjudged to have not conformed to the way that the track was designed and built, in the way you managed it, that you get a time penalty, and then there are further penalties waiting for you if you repeat that offense. There is Henry Kemster currently running in P5, and he is trying to improve. Already in the final sector, actually already in the final turn, and now giving it a full blast of the throttle towards the timing line. Current timer 1:45.484. Is it an improvement? Not quite. Almost identical times, but no improvement for the time being. But he's going to go again. Also going again, Zoe Scrimpias, and thus far without any blemishes to his track limit adherence.
We are seeing some of the front-running drivers, including Andrea Levi then, who's out of the car, Nico, with just under 10 minutes remaining. I also saw just a moment ago Andreas Koenig. Here's Zoe Scrimpias then, personal best through Sector 1. And quicker than anyone through Sector 2. He's 2 1/4 tenths up, Nico, and I don't see any TLs against his name and number at the moment. So if he can hold this together, this could be the quickest time that we've seen from any of our Coca-Shell AM drivers thus far in qualifying.
Absolutely, and he's attacking the 143s. He has just one more turn to do. A little bit wide, a little bit off the apex, but still reasonable, I think. And it is gonna be a 143.722, and that means provisional pole position for Zeus Scrimpias. And just to pick up on what you just said, a lot of drivers finishing their quali session relatively early, and I think it's just a testament to tire preservation and also driver preservation potentially, because it's, as we said, it's already pretty warm out there.
So at the moment, the Rotiform pole position award and the point that goes along with it would go the way of Zeus Scrimpias. However, there are still other drivers out there that could and perhaps should improve their times.
Eric Chung is one of them with not a personal best, but a good first sector. He is attacking the time currently. Others who are potentially out of position: Hassan Debussy potentially, Josef Schumacher, Paulo Scudieri, and also Jan Sandman, currently in P7. He's just on his outlap. So there are a few drivers with 7 minutes and 40 seconds remaining who've decided that, well, actually, I will have another go at this and see how I can improve my positioning.
Eric Chung then, one of those that is trying to wrestle his way further northwards on the timing chart. As you can see, Sector 1 and Sector 2 are purple, are coloured grey rather than purple, so not necessarily expecting this to be a big improvement from Eric Chung, and in fairness, he certainly doesn't improve on his previous best time, which was the time that gave him P3 at 1:44.163. His last lap was a 1:45.586. Here's Henrik Kamstrup. Now, Henrik through Sector 1 has done well here. He's currently 6th fastest. So let's see what he can do through Sector 2 and Sector 3. Of course, the setup of the car is always a compromise to get the best out of the car across the combination of the 3 sectors. Well, Sector 2 was not quite as startling as Sector 1, Nico.
No, unfortunately not, and Henrik will know that, but he is still going about his business with anger and dedication and trying to improve on this lap, and he's not diving into the pit lane, so potentially he's going to give it one more go. And trying to move up from P6. Had a great conversation with him back at Mugello at the season opener, and he really gave us some insight into his motivation, how he's really looking forward to the whole season and trying to see how far up the order he can finish this year. And I think there were certainly some championship aspirations, but with all the other drivers, I mean, there is the aspiration, but there is also enjoying the fact that you're here in this wonderful, wonderful paddock.
Now, Zeus Scrimpias, true to form, has gone out there, done the least laps that he needed to, and has parked the car up in the pit lane in the hope that the tyre preservation that you have spoken about so articulated, whether he can maximise that and give him good rubber for the race ahead. And at the moment, you know, he's only just 3 tenths quicker than anybody else, and I wouldn't have said it's a comfortable position, but with 5.5 minutes remaining, I mean, Guy Favre is certainly improving personally. Is he improving enough to trouble the times right at the sharp end? Not so, I would have said. So perhaps this has been a very clever move by Zeus Scrimpias when you compare to some of the drivers that have done maybe 9 or 10 laps out there. How many has Zeus Scrimpias done, Nico?
4. And, you know, one of those was the one with the track limits. So, yeah, that is pretty good. Jan Sandman just logged in a personal and overall best in Sector 1 as Guy Favre has improved all the way up to P8. So there are definitely still good times out there, and one of those also with a very, very good first sector. Second sector still respectable. Shintaro Akatsu not troubling the front row, however, but still a possibility to move up from row 3 up to row 2 as we see that there is not a lot of traffic on the track, which obviously helps those drivers which are currently out there. Less traffic means less opportunity to get held up. Shintaro Katsu, personal improvement in terms of time, but not in terms of position. And yeah, Jan Sandman still fighting and still going about trying to improve, but the second sector wasn't quite up to the same lofty heights as sector 1 had been. Still possible for an improvement. We will find out in but a moment. And indeed, he leapfrogs Henrik Kamstrup and goes from P7
Oh,
up
got
to
a yellow
P6.
flag.
Indeed.
Oh, and that's the reason why. That's the Stephen Earle car, I believe, that's made contact somewhere. So Stephen Earle then tries to put the car off track and into a position of relative safety. So doubtless we will see in replay exactly where that number 100 car fell foul of the barriers. And I think it did, Nico, because I think I can see some bodywork on the back of the car there. You can see him running out. Well, in fairness, no, he didn't make contact anywhere, and actually it's the color of the gravel, perhaps, or perhaps the gravel trap just pulled that panel off the car at the back.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, no red flag to the session, so the session continues, which is good news for those who still have an aspiration to do something about their position. Henrik Kamstrup is one of them, although I think on this occasion nothing doing there, but looks like he's going to go again, and this for him, and we referenced the 4 laps of Zoe Scrimpius, he's already lap number 13.
So the risk-reward strategy with regards to tyre use in qualifying and what that will give you in the race, well, Henrik feels that the gamble is worth taking and is going again. We've got just under 2¼ minutes of the session remaining for our Copa Shell Am drivers in the Ferrari Challenge. This is round 3. We're live from the circuit of Jerez here in Spain, where it's Zoe Scrimpias, P1, the only driver in our Copa Shell Am drivers to put it into the 143s. Paolo Scudieri is hoping to improve from his current P12 position. Just about to complete the first sector, which will give us an indication of how on target he is. Well, he's 8 and a bit tenths down on the sector time of Zoe Scrimpias, so a bit of work to do over the final couple of sectors for Paolo Scudieri, who currently sits P12, I believe. Yes, it is P12 for Paolo Scudieri. And 1¼ minutes of the session remaining. We've got maybe 5 cars out there on track, and they are Henrik Kamstrup, Guy Favet, Paolo Scudieri, who we mentioned, Mutlu Tarsev, and also, I believe, Maurizio Pittori is still out there on track also.
Yeah. But in fairness, and we would like to build some more drama into this final part of this quali session, unfortunately, for those drivers, it really looks like nobody will be in a position to challenge for massive improvements, and certainly nobody looking to challenge, or nobody looking like he's challenging for Zoe Scrimpias and his P1 or Andrea Levy alongside on the front row. So this figures to be our front row: Zoe Scrimpias, Andrea Levy, P1, P2, which is exactly the same order as it is in the championship standings. There is Eric Chung, P3. Andreas Koenig is gonna start from P4. And there is Shintaro Akatsu, who is our P5 driver. So a very, very nice and interesting mix for the race later on across the first front rows. But I mean, all through the grid, there are so many great drivers and so much talent.
You're, as is so often the case, absolutely spot on, as well, right to the final knockings of this qualifying session. Henrik Kamstrup, who is on a lap, and therefore the lap will count. However, I don't think it's going to be one that will trouble this man, Zoe Scrimpias, who once again, Nico, for a rookie driver, having, before the start of this year, having never driven a racing car, it's a remarkable story, and he's congratulated there by Manuel Agosna. A real passionate driver. His family congratulate him as well. Doing a fantastic job. Well done to Zoe Skripias then for the Ineco Reparto Corsa Ram team. It's B1 with a 1:43.722. He remains the only driver in the Copa Shallams to have put it into the 43s. And well done to all the drivers out there for working so hard in these temperatures. Rotiform Pole Position Award will be delivered and distributed to Zoe Skrimpias. And it's another valuable point to add to his points tally as well. Congratulated, of course, by the whole team. And Eric Chung then, well, a very good qualifying from Eric Chung, P3, so row 2 start. And Andrea Levy then with second fastest for the Rosso Corsa Racer. We'll bring you the full classification from qualifying in just a moment as we look at the UFO then that braces the track here. Of course, the race action to come this afternoon. The temperature will increase and so will the sense of excitement and anticipation as we get to Ferrari Challenge racing with qualifying now across all our categories done and dusted. Paolo Scudieri taking a look at the analysis on screen. Can't help but feel he'll be just a tad disappointed with his P12. We've seen some fantastic driving from Paolo Scudieri. And here then, as promised, confirmation as Zoe Skrimpias takes P1 from Andrea Levy, then P2, Eric Chung P3, then Andreas Koenig, Shintaro Akatsu, Jan Sandman, Henrik Kamstrup, and Guy Fave. Then they occupy the first 4 rows of our grid to come this afternoon ahead of Tal El-Sher, Roland Hurtner, Mutlu Tarzev, Paolo Scudieri, Josef Schumacher, Maurizio Pittori, Stephen Earle then. And we're not done yet because Franz Kivitz, Hassan Debussy, Lisa Clark, Alvaro Ramos, and Louis Peruskia complete the 20 drivers that contested qualifying for Copa Chalam. From Nico and from myself, thank you so much for watching it, and please make sure you join us this afternoon for our racing to come. Goodbye for now.